Marcus Cole had been drifting through space for 3 years. His ship was old, held together by hope and spare parts he found floating in debris fields. He had no home to return to, no family waiting for him. Earth was far behind, and the galaxy stretched endless and cold before him. He was running low on fuel when his engine started making a sound like a dying animal. Warning lights blinked red across his control panel. The navigation computer, which barely worked on good days, showed he was near a planet called Valentris, the capital world of the Felisari Empire. Marcus had heard stories about the Felisari. Cat people, the traders called them. They stood tall on 2 legs, covered in fur of every color, with eyes that glowed in darkness. They had ruled their corner of the galaxy for thousands of years. They did not like strangers, but his ship was dying, and he had no choice. He sent out a distress signal. Within minutes, 3 sleek patrol ships surrounded him. They were beautiful and deadly, shaped like silver claws against the blackness of space. A voice crackled through his communicator. It spoke in perfect English, which surprised him. "Human vessel, you have entered Felisari space without permission. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded." Marcus did as he was told. He had learned long ago that arguing with people who had bigger guns was a fast way to die. The Felisari soldiers who entered his ship moved like liquid shadow. Their armor was black and tight against their bodies. Their faces were feline, with whiskers and pointed ears, but their expressions were unreadable. They searched his vessel quickly and found nothing dangerous. Just a tired human with a broken ship. The squad leader studied Marcus with golden eyes. She was tall, her fur a deep gray with black stripes. "You will come with us," she said. It was not a question. They brought him to the surface of Valentris, in a shuttle that moved faster than anything he had ever experienced. Through the window, Marcus saw a city that made him forget to breathe. Towers of crystal and metal rose toward purple clouds. Flying vehicles moved between buildings in perfect patterns. Gardens floated in the sky, connected by bridges of light. This was not a civilization that was thousands of years old. This was a civilization that had perfected itself. The shuttle landed at the Imperial Palace, a structure so massive it had its own weather system. Clouds formed around its highest spires. Marcus was led through corridors of polished stone and living plants that turned to watch him pass. Everywhere he looked, Felisari nobles stared at him with curiosity and disgust. He was a strange creature in their perfect world. They brought him to a chamber filled with machines he did not understand. The gray-furred soldier who had captured him spoke to a technician in their musical language. Then she turned to Marcus. "Standard procedure," she said. "All beings entering the capital must be scanned. Hold still." A beam of blue light washed over him from head to toe. It felt warm, like standing in sunlight. The machines hummed and clicked. Marcus waited, expecting them to finish quickly and throw him in a cell. Instead, every machine in the room began screaming. Alarms echoed through the chamber. Red lights flashed. The technician stumbled backward, her fur standing on end. The soldiers raised their weapons, pointing them at Marcus, who raised his hands in confusion. "I didn't do anything," he said. "I swear, I didn't touch anything." The gray soldier was reading something on a floating display. Her golden eyes grew wide. For the first time, Marcus saw emotion on a Felisari face. It was shock. Pure, complete shock. She spoke into a communicator in rapid Felisari. More soldiers arrived, then more. Soon the chamber was filled with warriors. In black armor, all staring at Marcus like he was a ghost. "What is happening?" Marcus asked. No one answered. They marched him deeper into the palace, through doors that required multiple guards to open. The architecture grew older and grander. Ancient statues of Felisari rulers watched him pass. Tapestries showed battles and ceremonies from ages long forgotten. Finally, they reached the throne room. It was a space designed to make visitors feel small. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above. The floor was a single piece of black stone, polished until it reflected like water. And at the far end, on a throne carved from what looked like a fallen star, sat Empress Selenia the Eternal. She was ancient. Marcus could see it in the silver of her fur, in the slow way she moved. But her eyes were sharp and green, burning with an intelligence that had guided an empire for centuries. She wore robes of deep purple, and a crown of floating crystals circled her head. On either side of her stood two younger Felisari. They had to be her daughters. One was tall and muscular, with fur the color of storm clouds and eyes like ice. She wore military armor and looked at Marcus like he was an insect. The other was smaller, sleeker, with pure black fur and eyes of liquid gold. She looked at Marcus like he was a puzzle she wanted to solve. The gray soldier knelt before the throne. "Your Eternal Majesty, the scan has found a match." The first match in 2,000 cycles. The throne room fell silent. Every Felisari present stopped breathing. The Empress leaned forward slowly. "Show me." A holographic display appeared in the air. Marcus saw his own biological data next to lines of Felisari text he could not read. But he saw one thing clearly. Two patterns, side by side, glowing green. A perfect match. The prophecy. Someone whispered. Marcus had no idea what that meant. He had come here to fix his ship. He had expected a fine, maybe a few days in detention. Not this. Not a room full of alien royalty staring at him like he had just changed the course of history. The Empress rose from her throne. She walked toward him with slow, measured steps. Her daughters followed, watching him with very different expressions. The military one looked angry. The dark one looked hungry. Selenia stopped before Marcus. She was shorter than him, but somehow she seemed to fill the entire room. "Do you know why you are here, human?" she asked. "My ship broke down," Marcus said. Something flickered in her ancient eyes. It might have been amusement. "No," she said. "You are here because you are the starbound consort. You are the one our sacred texts have promised for 2,000 years. You are the fire that will either lift our empire to glory or burn it to ashes." Marcus looked at the Empress. He looked at her two daughters, one cold as winter, one dark as midnight. He looked at the army of soldiers and nobles surrounding him. "I think," he said slowly, "there has been a mistake." The Empress smiled. It was not a comforting expression. "There is no mistake, human. The machines do not lie. Your blood carries the markers. Your genetics match the ancient prophecy exactly." She gestured to her daughters. "And now, my children will compete for the right to claim you. The trial of binding begins." Marcus had survived pirates, asteroid fields, and 3 years alone in space. But looking at the two princesses, who now studied him like predators examining prey, he felt true fear for the first time. What had he gotten himself into? They gave Marcus a room in the palace. It was larger than any apartment he had ever lived in on Earth. The bed could fit 10 people. The windows looked out over the endless city. A pool of warm water bubbled in one corner, and machines offered him food whenever he looked hungry. It was the most beautiful prison in the galaxy. Guards stood outside his door at all times. They were polite, but they made it clear he could not leave. Not yet. Not until the trial was complete. On his first night, the elder princess came to visit him. High Princess Kethra entered his room like a storm entering a valley. Her gray fur was perfect, her ice blue eyes sharp enough to cut steel. She wore her military armor even here, as if she expected battle at any moment. "Human?" she said. She did not sit. She stood in the center of the room and looked down at him. "I am told your name is Marcus Cole." "That is correct," Marcus said. He stayed seated on the edge of his bed. He had learned that standing up to dominant predators only made them want to prove their dominance. "I command the Imperial fleet," Kethra said. 300,000 warships answer to me. I have conquered 12 star systems and crushed rebellions that threaten to tear this empire apart. I am the greatest military leader the Felisari have produced in 500 years. Marcus nodded. "That is impressive. I do not need your approval." Her tail flicked with irritation. "I am telling you this so you understand something. This trial is a formality. I will win. The prophecy speaks of strength, and no one is stronger than me. When this is over, you will be mine, and together we will lead this empire into a new age of conquest." She paused, waiting for his response. "What if I do not want to be anyone's?" Marcus asked. Kethra's eyes narrowed. "What you want is irrelevant. The prophecy has chosen you. The only choice you have is which sister claims you. Choose wisely." She turned and walked out without another word. Marcus sat alone, thinking about what she had said. He did not like being told his choices did not matter. He had spent his whole life fighting for the right to make his own decisions. The next morning, the younger princess came to visit. Princess Nyxara was everything her sister was not. Where Kethra was loud and direct, Nyxara was quiet and curved. She moved like smoke, sliding into his room so softly he did not notice her until she spoke. "You are thinking about escape," she said from behind him. Marcus spun around. She stood by the window, her black fur making her almost invisible against the dark curtains. Her golden eyes glowed with amusement. "Every human would be thinking about escape," she continued. "Your species does not accept captivity. We have been watching you for decades. We know how you think. You have been watching humanity?" Marcus asked. Nyxara smiled. Her teeth were very white and very sharp. "I lead the Shadow Claws, intelligence, espionage. We watch everyone." She walked closer, her movements fluid and hypnotic. "I know things about your species that your own governments have tried to hide. I know about the wars you fight among yourselves, the weapons you are developing, the enemies you do not yet know you have." Marcus felt cold. "What enemies?" "Ah," Nyxara's smile grew wider. "Now you are interested. My sister offers you power and glory. I offer you something more valuable, information, knowledge that could save your entire species. And what do you want in return? Only what the prophecy promises. Choose me when the trial ends. Together, we will not just rule this empire. We will reshape the entire galaxy." She reached out and touched his face with soft, furred fingers. "Think about it, Marcus Cole. Think about what your people need." Then she was gone, slipping out of the room like a shadow fading at dawn. Marcus was left with more questions than answers. What enemies was she talking about? What did the Felisari know about threats to humanity? And why did both sisters seem so certain that he would simply accept his role as a prize to be won? He decided to stop waiting for answers to come to him. He would find them himself. Over the following days, Marcus requested access to the palace library. The guards were surprised, but they granted his request. Most prisoners asked for better food or entertainment. None had ever asked to study. The library was vast, a cathedral of knowledge containing millions of books and data crystals. Marcus could not read Felisari script, but translation devices helped him access the information. He began studying everything he could find about the prophecy, the trial, and the history of the empire. What he learned disturbed him. The prophecy was ancient, written during a time of great crisis thousands of years ago. It spoke of a being from beyond Felisari space, born on a world of death and struggle, who would carry fire in his blood and steel in his soul. This starbound consort would appear at a moment of great change and would determine the fate of the empire. But there was something else, a detail that no one had mentioned to him. The trial was not just a competition between the sisters. It was also a test of the consort himself. If he chose poorly, if he selected the wrong princess, he would share her fate. And the fate of a rejected Felisari royal was exile or execution. Marcus understood now why the sisters were working so hard to win his favor. They were not just competing for power. They were fighting for survival. And so as he kept reading. He learned about past trials, about alliances and betrayals, about the complex web of noble houses that supported each princess. Cathara had the military behind her, plus the traditional conservative families who valued strength above all. Mixara had the intelligence services and the progressive houses who wanted reform and change. The empire was balanced on a knife's edge. The trial would tip it one way or another, but Marcus also noticed something that the Felisari themselves seemed to have forgotten. The prophecy did not say the starbound consort would choose a princess. It said he would determine the fate of the empire. Those were not the same thing. An idea began to form in his mind. A dangerous idea. An idea that went against everything the Felisari expected. What if he refused to play their game at all? He was still thinking about this when a servant came to fetch him. The Empress had summoned him to witness the announcement of the trial's first challenge. In the Great Hall, surrounded by thousands of Felisari nobles, Marcus stood and watched as Empress Selenia declared the beginning of the trial of binding. Her two daughters stood on opposite sides of the chamber, each surrounded by their supporters. "The first challenge is the trial of warfare," the Empress announced. "Each princess will lead a campaign against the Krik's hegemony on our border. The one who achieves victory with the greatest honor will win the first trial." The crowd cheered. Cathara smiled with cold confidence. Nexora remained expressionless, but her golden eyes found Marcus across the room. As the nobles celebrated, Marcus thought about what he had learned. The Kriks were insectoid raiders who had attacked the empire for centuries. Both princesses would want to defeat them quickly and impressively, but something bothered him. Why were the Kriks attacking now? After centuries of relative peace on that border, why had they suddenly become aggressive again? He filed the question away for later. He was beginning to understand that nothing in this empire was as simple as it appeared, and he was beginning to understand that he was more than a prize to be won. He was a piece in a game much larger than anyone had told him. A game that might determine not just the fate of this empire, but the fate of humanity itself. Marcus Cole had never been good at following other people's rules. He was not about to start now. Marcus watched the trial of warfare from a viewing room in the palace. Giant screens showed him everything happening on the distant border worlds. He was supposed to be an observer, nothing more. But he watched with the eyes of an engineer who had served in Earth's military. He noticed things that the Felisari commentators missed. Cathara attacked first. Her strategy was pure overwhelming force. She gathered her fleet, 300 warships bristling with weapons, and drove straight into Krik's territory. The insectoid aliens tried to resist, but they were like insects trying to stop a flood. The battle was brutal and beautiful. Cathara stood on the bridge of her flagship, giving orders with cold precision. Her ships moved in perfect formation, cutting through enemy defenses like claws through flesh. Within 3 days, she had captured the contested world. The Kriks were scattered and broken down. The nobles watching with Marcus cheered and celebrated. "A magnificent victory," they said. "The High Princess proves her strength once again." But Marcus saw what they did not see. Cathara had lost 47 ships. Over 2,000 Felisari soldiers were dead. The victory was real, but the cost was high. And more importantly, she had fought like someone who expected the battle to follow traditional rules. The Kriks had not fought traditionally. They had thrown themselves at her ships with desperate fury, sacrificing themselves in waves. That was not the behavior of raiders looking for easy targets. That was the behavior of beings who were afraid of something worse than death. Nyxera's campaign was different. She did not attack with a massive fleet. Instead, she sent small teams of Shadow Claw agents deep into Crick's territory. They moved in silence, invisible to sensors, finding their way to the enemy leadership. Within 2 days, every major Crick's commander was dead. Their communications were disrupted. Their supply lines were cut. When Nyxera finally sent her ships in, the Crick's defense collapsed without a real fight. She captured her target world with almost no casualties. The conservatives grumbled. "There is no honor in assassination," they said. "A true warrior meets their enemy face to face." But Marcus noticed something else entirely. Nyxera's agents had captured information along with territory. Data crystals from Crick's command centers. Marcus saw her studying them with an expression he could not read. When the trial of warfare ended, the judges declared it a draw. Cathra had shown strength and courage. Nyxera had shown cunning and efficiency. Neither princess had clearly defeated the other, but Marcus had seen enough. During a moment when his guards were distracted, he accessed the palace library systems and searched for any information about the Crick's border. What he found made his blood run cold. The Crick's migration patterns had changed dramatically over the past 50 years. They were not attacking the Felisari Empire. They were running from something. Their entire species was slowly moving inward, toward the galactic core, like animals fleeing a forest fire. Something out in the darkness between stars had scared them. Scared them so badly they were willing to die fighting the Felisari, rather than face whatever was behind them. Marcus stored this information carefully and told no one. Not yet. The trial of wisdom came next. The sisters would debate before the full imperial court, answering a question chosen by the Empress herself. The question was simple but dangerous. What is the greatest threat to the Felisari Empire? Cathra spoke first. She stood tall and proud before the assembled nobles, her voice ringing with certainty. "The greatest threat is external," she declared. "Our enemies grow bold. The Cricks attack our borders. The Trade Confederation eyes our resources. A dozen smaller powers wait for any sign of weakness. The Empire must expand. We must grow stronger. We must crush any who dare challenge us before they become true threats." The military supporters cheered. Cathra spoke their language. Strength, power, dominance. These were the values that had built the Empire. Nyxera spoke second. She was calm and quiet, but her words cut like hidden knives. "The greatest threat is internal," she said. "Our noble houses play games while our people suffer. Corruption spreads through our bureaucracy like disease. We rest on the achievements of our ancestors instead of building our own. The Empire does not need more conquest. It needs reform. We must clean our house before we can face any enemy." The progressive houses applauded. Nyxera understood their frustrations. The Empire was old and slow, trapped in traditions that no longer served any purpose. The debate continued for hours. Both sisters made good arguments. Both had supporters shouting in agreement. Neither seemed to gain a clear advantage. Then something unexpected happened. One of the judges, an elderly noble with silver fur, turned to Marcus. "The Starbound consort has heard both arguments," the judge said. "The prophecy says he will determine our fate. Perhaps we should hear his thoughts." The room fell silent. This was not part of the normal trial. Marcus suspected Nyxera had arranged it, trying to give him a chance to support her in public. All eyes turned to him. Cathra glared with cold fury. Nyxera watched with careful interest. The Empress observed from her throne. Ancient and unreadable. Marcus stood slowly. He had not planned to speak. But now that the opportunity was here, he decided to tell them the truth. "Your greatest threat is the question you are not asking," he said. The nobles murmured in confusion. Marcus continued. High Princess Kethera says the threat is external. Princess Nixara says the threat is internal. They are both right, but they are also both wrong. The real danger is not your enemies or your corruption. The real danger is that you have stopped adapting. He paused, letting his words sink in. I come from Earth. My species is young. We have only been traveling between stars for a few decades. But we have survived ice ages that covered our world in frozen death. We have survived plagues that killed half our population. We have survived wars that burned our cities to ash. We survived because we adapted. We changed. We grew. They looked around the room at the beautiful, ancient, perfect Felisari civilization. Your empire has ruled for thousands of years. You have built something magnificent. But magnificent things become fragile. You have found the best way to do everything, and now you do it the same way forever. You do not ask new questions. You do not try new solutions. You have built perfection, and perfection is brittle. It shatters when the universe hits it with something unexpected. The room was completely silent. Both princesses are right about the problems they see, but neither is asking the most important question. Not what threatens you now, but what will you do when something you never expected arrives? That is your greatest threat. The thing you cannot imagine because you have stopped imagining. He sat down. The court erupted. Some nobles shouted in anger. How dare this primitive human lecture them? Others looked thoughtful, disturbed by words that touched fears they had never spoken aloud. Kethera looked at Marcus like she wanted to kill him. Nixara looked at him like she was seeing him for the first time, and the Empress smiled. Just slightly. Just for a moment. A smile that said she had heard exactly what she hoped to hear. The judges conferred for a long time. When they announced their decision, they declared the trial of wisdom another draw. Both princesses had argued well. The humans' comments were noted, but not officially considered. But Marcus knew something had changed. He was no longer just a prize to be won. He had shown them that humans were not simple creatures to be collected and controlled. He had shown them that he had teeth. And watching from her throne, the ancient Empress began to wonder if perhaps the prophecy meant something very different from what everyone had always assumed. The final trial was different from the others. The trial of will did not test the princesses directly. Instead, it tested Marcus himself. The Empress summoned him to a private chamber, away from the crowds and the politics. She sat across from him at a simple stone table, 2 cups of hot liquid between them. For the first time, Marcus saw her not as a ruler, but as a very old and very tired woman carrying the weight of an empire. Do you understand what the trial of will requires? She asked. I have read about it, Marcus said. I must design a challenge that reveals the true character of both princesses. Then I must choose between them based on what I learn. If I choose wrong, I share the fate of the rejected one. The Empress nodded slowly. Most consorts in your position have simply chosen whoever they thought would win anyway. They played it safe. But you are not like other consorts, are you? No, Marcus agreed. I am not. The prophecy says you will determine the fate of the empire. Not that you will marry a princess. Not that you will serve a throne. Her green eyes studied him carefully. I have ruled for 300 years. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched my daughters grow from kittens into powerful women. And I have waited a very long time for you. Marcus felt the weight of her words. What do you want from me? I want you to do what the prophecy truly demands. Not what tradition expects. Not what is safe or easy. She leaned forward. I want you to change everything. She rose and left him alone to prepare his challenge. Marcus thought for 3 days. He barely slept. He ate only when servants forced food upon him. His mind raced through everything he had learned about the sisters, the Empire, and the danger lurking in the darkness beyond the borders. Finally, he was ready. The trial of will took place in the Great Chamber of Decisions, where every important choice in Felisari history had been made. Thousands of nobles filled the viewing galleries. Both princesses stood before Marcus, waiting for his challenge. "I will present you with a situation," Marcus said. His voice was calm, but carried to every corner of the chamber. "You must tell me what you would do. There is no right answer. There is only your answer." The sisters nodded. Cathara stood rigid and proud. Nixara was relaxed but watchful. "Imagine a generation ship," Marcus began. 10,000 colonists traveling to a new world. The ship is damaged beyond repair. Systems are failing. In 12 hours, everyone on board will die. He paused to let them picture it. There are two options. First, you can sacrifice 80% of the people to save the ship itself. Use their life support, their resources, their power to keep the vessel functioning. 20% survive and eventually reach the destination. Second, you can abandon the ship and evacuate 50% of the people to a nearby moon. Survival there is uncertain. Maybe they make it. Maybe they all die. But you give more people a chance. He looked at both princesses. "What do you do?" Cathara answered first, without hesitation. "Save the ship. 20% guaranteed survival is better than 50% uncertain survival. The ship can be repaired. The colony can be rebuilt. Mathematics is clear. Certainty defeats hope." Nixara took longer to respond. Her golden eyes were thoughtful. "Evacuate to the moon," she said finally. "Numbers matter. 5,000 with a chance is better than 2,000 guaranteed. Hope is not weakness. Hope is what drives beings to survive impossible situations." Both answers were logical. Both showed who the sisters truly were. Katara was a leader who trusted facts and strength. Nixor was a leader who trusted people and possibility. The court waited for Marcus to choose. Instead, he asked another question. "Did either of you consider a third option?" The sisters looked at each other, confused. The nobles murmured. "Your choices were save the ship or save the people," Marcus continued. "But what if you could save both? What if you used the ship's reactor for a controlled burst of power, pushing the entire vessel toward the moon? Higher risk. Everything could explode. But if it works, everyone survives. Ship and passengers together." Cathara frowned. "That is reckless. The probability of success would be very low." "Probably around 15%, Marcus agreed. "A human engineer might make it work. We are very good at making broken things function in ways they were not designed for." "You would gamble 10,000 lives on 15%? Nixara asked. "I would give 10,000 people a chance to all survive together, instead of choosing who lives and who dies." Marcus stepped forward, looking at both sisters directly. "That is what humans do. We do not accept impossible choices. We reject the options we are given and find new ones. Sometimes we fail. Sometimes everyone dies. But sometimes we win against all odds, and those victories are what define us." The chamber was silent. "I will not choose between you," Marcus announced. The words hit like a thunderbolt. Nobles shouted in shock. Guards raised weapons. Cathara's hand dropped to her sword. Nixara's eyes went wide. "The trial requires a choice," one of the judges protested. "If you do not choose, you forfeit your life. Then perhaps the trial is wrong." Marcus did not back down. "You are asking me to validate a system where I am a prize, and one of these women gets destroyed. One of them dies or goes into exile because of who I pick. That is not justice. That is not wisdom. That is just cruelty wrapped in tradition." He turned to face the Empress directly. The prophecy says I will determine the fate of the empire. Maybe that does not mean choosing a princess. Maybe it means forcing the empire to change. You ask me what your greatest threat is. Here is my answer. Your greatest threat is that you keep doing things the same way forever, because that is how they have always been done. The Empress rose from her throne. The entire chamber fell silent. Every eye was on her. This human refuses the trial, Kethra said, her voice tight with fury. He has insulted our traditions. He must be punished. He has shown courage, Nyxara said softly. Courage that our traditions did not anticipate. The Empress walked down from her throne, slow and deliberate. She approached Marcus until they stood face to face. For 2,000 years, every starbound consort has made a choice, she said. Everyone is played by the rules of the trial. Everyone has done what tradition demanded. And what happened to them? Marcus asked. The Empress's old eyes met his. Most of them watched the empire stagnate and decay. They chose safe options. They reinforced existing power structures. They changed nothing. She paused. I have waited 300 years for a consort who would refuse to play, who would break the rules and force something new to happen. She turned to face the assembled court. This human has passed the trial of will, not by choosing, but by refusing to accept a choice that should never have been offered. The prophecy speaks of fire in his blood. Fire does not follow rules. Fire transforms everything it touches. The court erupted in chaos. Some nobles cheered. Others screamed in outrage. Kethra looked like she wanted to murder everyone in the room. Nyxara watched with an expression of growing understanding. What happens now? Marcus asked. The Empress smiled her ancient, knowing smile. Now, human, we see if you were right. We see if the fire you carry can save this empire, or if it will burn us all to ashes. She looked at her daughters. And my children must decide what they will do when the rules they have lived by no longer apply. In that moment, standing in the heart of an alien empire, Marcus Cole realized that he had done something no human had ever done before. He had changed the course of galactic history. The only question now was whether that change would lead to salvation or destruction. The days after the trial of will were chaos. Half the noble houses demanded Marcus's execution for blasphemy against tradition. The other half saw him as a sign of needed change. The palace became a battleground of words and whispered plots. Kethra and Nyxara withdrew to their separate strongholds. The military fleet moved to alert status. The Shadowclaw agents disappeared into the shadows, gathering information, preparing for whatever came next. Civil war seemed inevitable. Marcus was confined to his quarters under heavy guard. Not for his protection, they said, but to protect him from assassination attempts. 3 had already been stopped. Apparently, some nobles preferred a dead prophecy to a living one that did not behave properly. He spent his time studying, preparing, waiting for the storm to break. It was Nyxara who came to him first, slipping past the guards like they did not exist. You were right, she said, without greeting. About the Cricks, about something hunting them. She placed a data crystal on his table. Information stolen from Crick's command. Centers during her campaign. Marcus activated it and felt his heart freeze. The images showed ships. Thousands of them. Millions. Ships made of dark metal and cold light, moving through space like a wave of death. Behind them, they left nothing. No planets. No stations. No life. Just empty void where civilizations had once existed. The Void Collective, Nyxara said. A machine intelligence. It has been sweeping through the outer galaxy for centuries, erasing all organic life. The Cricks ran from it. Other species simply ceased to exist. How long until they reach Felisari space? 3 generations. Maybe less? Marcus stared at the images of annihilation. Your mother knows. She has known for decades. Nixera's golden eyes were troubled. The trial, the prophecy, it was all preparation. She needed to know if her daughters could adapt to face an enemy unlike anything we have ever encountered. She needed a catalyst to wake the Empire from its comfortable sleep. And now? Now the question is whether we destroy ourselves fighting over tradition or unite to face extinction. The door crashed open. Kethera strode in, her armor gleaming, her ice-blue eyes blazing with fury. You showed him, she said to her sister. You showed him the forbidden information. He needed to know. Nixara did not back down. We all need to face the truth. The truth is that this human has destroyed the order that kept our empire stable for thousands of years. Kethera's hand rested on her sword. The truth is that my soldiers are ready to restore that order by force. And while we fight each other, the Void Collective grows closer. Marcus stepped between the sisters. I have watched you both during these trials. Kethera, you are a brilliant commander. Your strength could rally the Empire's defenses. Nixara, you understand enemies and information. You could find the Collective's weaknesses. He looked at each of them. Apart, you are powerful. Together, you could be unstoppable. But only if you stop treating each other as rivals to be destroyed. Kethera laughed bitterly. Joint rulership is impossible. It has never been done in Felisari history. Then make history. Marcus's voice was hard. Your species has ruled this corner of the galaxy for millennia. You have built something incredible. Are you really going to let it die because you cannot imagine doing something new? The sisters looked at each other. Generations of rivalry and competition stood between them. Years of fighting for their mother's approval, for the throne, for dominance. But they also looked at the images of the Void Collective. The endless wave of death sweeping toward everything they had ever known. If we do this, Kethera said slowly, if we rule together, it changes everything. Everything needs to change, Nixara replied. The human is right. We have been so busy fighting each other that we did not see the real enemy. And what of him? Kethera gestured at Marcus. The prophecy says the starbound consort determines our fate. What role does he play in this new order? Marcus smiled grimly. I have a suggestion about that. 3 days later, the Empress summoned the full imperial court. For the first time in history, both princesses stood together before the throne. Side by side, gray fur and black fur, ice eyes and gold eyes. Empress Selenia the Eternal rose one final time. I have ruled for 300 years, she announced. I have guided this empire through crises and triumphs. But my time is ending. Today, I name my successors. The court held its breath. High Princess Kethera and Princess Nixara will rule together as twin empresses. They will share the throne, combining strength and wisdom, military might and intelligent subtlety. The old ways of competition and elimination end today. The shock was absolute. Nobles who had spent lifetimes supporting one sister against the other suddenly found themselves without a side to fight for. And the starbound consort? Someone called out. Marcus Cole of Earth will serve as first advisor to both empresses. Not as property, not as prize, as partner and counselor. The first human to hold official position in the imperial government. She paused, letting the announcement settle. But this is not merely political change. There is a reason for this union, a threat that demands we set aside old divisions. The images of the Void Collective appeared above the court. Gasps of horror filled the chamber. This machine intelligence has destroyed thousands of civilizations. It comes for us now. We cannot defeat it with our traditions and our rivalries. We can only defeat it by changing, by growing, by becoming something new. The Empress turned to Marcus. The prophecy said you would carry fire in your blood. I believe that fire is not destruction. It is transformation. Your species survived your brutal homeworld because you adapted constantly. You refused to accept impossible situations. You found third options when everyone else saw only two. She smiled her ancient smile one last time. Teach us to burn like humans do. Teach us to survive the impossible. 1 year later, Marcus stood on the bridge of the ESS Defiance. It was the first human dreadnought built with Felisari technology, a massive ship that combined the best of both species. Behind it, a fleet of 10,000 vessels waited. Human and Felisari crews served together on every ship. Kethra's hologram appeared beside him. She still wore her military armor, but something had softened in her ice-blue eyes. The scouts report void collective activity on the outer border. They are testing our defenses. Let them test, Marcus said. Let them see what they are facing. Nixera's voice joined from another hologram. Our intelligence suggests they have never encountered species that cooperate across such different biologies. They do not understand alliances. Only consumption. Good. Surprise is a weapon. He looked out at the fleet. Human engineers had spent months teaching Felisari crews to improvise, to adapt, to find solutions that were not in any manual. Felisari strategists had taught human officers the patience and precision of ancient military traditions. They were becoming something new. Neither fully human nor fully Felisari, but a combination stronger than either alone. The Void Collective has been destroying civilizations for longer than humanity has existed, Marcus said. They think they understand organic life. They think we are predictable. They think we are weak. He smiled, and it was not a kind smile. They have never met humans before. They have never faced beings who refuse to accept defeat, even when defeat is certain. They have never fought people who would rather die trying something impossible than surrender to the inevitable. Behind him, 10,000 human and Felisari volunteers prepared for war. The prophecy said I would carry fire in my blood. It did not mention that fire was contagious. Marcus activated the fleet-wide communication channel. All ships, this is Advisor Cole. The enemy thinks we are just another civilization to destroy. Let us show them how wrong they are. Let us show them what happens when humanity and Felisari fight together. He paused, feeling the weight of two species depending on him. Let us show them that we do not accept no-win scenarios. We find third options. And our third option today is victory. The fleet moved forward into the darkness between stars, toward an enemy that had never known defeat. Behind them, an empire transformed. Two sisters ruled together where rivals had always ruled alone. Humans walked freely through palace corridors where aliens had never been welcome. Ancient traditions bent and changed to face new realities. And somewhere, watching from her temple of retirement, the ancient Empress smiled. The Starbound consort had brought fire, just as the prophecy promised. Now it was time to see if that fire would light the way to salvation, or become the funeral pyre of two civilizations. Either way, the galaxy would never be the same. Marcus Cole, the drifter with the broken ship, had changed everything. And he was just getting started.